Broadcast the rhythm. Go live, Vegas on the screen, feeling the flow, so pristine. Boom, as the beats align, electric dreams, they intertwine.
This would be Nancy's Riot podcast about positivity, being strong, get survivor, mental health, helping each other and overcoming life's challenges. Psycho like a lab, I'll this to be a hurt. Hey. Chasing me is everything to the load alone. Hey, I'll let go and chase. I don't.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for anyone who takes the time to watch and listen to what I have to say, and for everyone who interacts with me. I truly want to thank you for your time. With that said, anybody who's watched last week's episode, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel after we recorded that segment, because I never speak about him wrong in depth. And usually when I give a speech, it's 20 minutes. And if it's about my life, I may be only touching about 5 minutes on different aspects of my life. So he's not something that is the focal point of my speeches, or at least he hasn't been yet.
Can I jump in just for a second?
Sure.
Who's Ron?
Oh, wrong.
Wrong? Well, I mean, you just didn't introduce.
Wrong. From last week's episode, my abusive ex-husband that I spoke about.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And I was sharing with Aaron, my producer, how it hit me like bricks. I started getting flooded with memories. And a lot of these memories I have written down in my journals throughout the years that I've been keeping detailed notes about. But the few times that I've had one-on-one conversations with somebody and I speak about him, I remember one time a friend telling me, this doesn't even sound real. And even when I say some things out loud, I know it sounds crazy, because that part of my life, that short time I was with him, there was so much chaos, that he's so chaotic, that now I can appreciate the peace and peace of mind that I now have. And it's not easy, me opening up to you guys about him, because I wish I didn't have to speak up on him. But like I mentioned, there hasn't been a year since he came back into my life that I've not had to deal with him. And you know what's also interesting, and I'd forgotten, Aaron, that I don't think I've mentioned this to you, but during the time that I was with him, bad energy brings bad energy. There were so many bad things that happened during the amount of time that I was with him. But anyhow, the reason why I'm opening up, and I feel it's important for me to do, I guess, a follow-up to last week's episode, is because it's also cathartic for me. Every time I give a speech, I leave shame once I'm off that stage, because the things that I think I can't speak up on publicly, once I'm done speaking about it, I no longer have that fear that would keep me stuck in a loop, I guess you could say. And I think so many times as humans, or at least I can speak for myself, when I would have emotions for anything bad that occurred to me, because there's somebody else that I need to speak to you guys about. And I'm not sure that I'm going to how in depth I'll go about this individual, because there's certain things and aspects of my life that I'm only going to save for my speaking engagements, not for this, not for my podcast. Maybe I'll change my mind. I'm not sure. But the reason why I feel it's important for me to do a follow-up is because it's healing for me. Being able to just talk about it, and I don't know if I'm going to cry. I don't know what my emotions are that you're going to get to see today. And if it gets heavy, because this last week some things have gotten heavy, I'll walk out of the frame, or I will ask Aaron to pause. And usually if I cry, what's going on in my brain, it's either you've pissed me off, or I'm relieving emotions. And I've realized that now, if I can sit with my emotions and process them and think things through of what I'm feeling, and if that's what takes strength and courage, because so many times as humans, many of us can't sit with ourselves and what we're going through and what we're feeling. So we, or at least I know I've done it, is I either dismiss those emotions or what I'm going through, and I get busy with something else, and it's like I put it in the back burner and I don't deal with it. And when I deal with it, then it avoids me a lot of mistakes, I guess, or errors that I could have prevented had I just sat with my feelings. And I've been doing so much healing, not just physically, mentally, and emotionally, but spiritually as well. And one skill, or gift, I should say, that post-brain surgery that I've learned how to embrace, and how in tuned I am with discernment. I now don't need a lesson a second time for me to understand the first time was enough. And I want you to capture the emotions in real time. And I wrote everything down because when I do get overwhelmed, my brain sometimes it just starts, so many things start coming to it. In order for me to keep things in chronological order, I wrote things down. So if you see me looking down, that's the reason why. But also, if I allow you to see the unedited unversion of myself, maybe it will help somebody out there that's listening or watching my episode to change their lives. And to me, the reason why I'm doing this is, as I've said in the past, I think that my life can serve as a guide for somebody else that might find themselves in my situation. And if it does, and it gives you the strength and the courage to walk away or make a change, then my life is serving its purpose. And I've been pivoting as well as I go doing this, the podcast. This is all new to me. And I can tell you it's a lot harder than what I expected. In trying to get in sync with people's schedule. I have 2 guests that I need to schedule. And one of them is my doctor, because if you've not caught up on my other episodes, I want to bring them on. And one of the things that I've realized through the last 4 years and all my health challenges that I've undergone is health in America and how much it sucks. And I think that we need to talk about that too. And I think that's a really important subject, because I've now dealt with 3 of the major insurance carriers for 3 different surgeries. And I believe a few episodes back, I don't even know if I've disclosed this, but when I had foot surgery last year, I enrolled into a Harvard class in public speaking. And my speech, I did it on healthcare in America. So that is a subject I do want to touch on, because I think I can educate some of you on how to, some of the obstacles or whatnot, or something that we can discuss as a society, as a group, someday in an episode about that. But anyhow, just wanted to let you guys know that. So I don't think I'll probably make another episode about him. I think I'm going to get a reaction from him, from last week's and this week's episode. If I don't, I'd be shocked, or from her. If I don't, it's only because they're both cowards, if I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that they can have a not face-to-face, or because I don't ever want to see him face-to-face, but at least even a phone conversation when I do the live, when I send him save the date. But I also, part of the reason why I wanted to do the follow-up is from last week's episode, is I wanted to take you into the mind of somebody like him, and some of the things that I deal with behind closed doors that I've not spoken up about, but that if you're in an abusive relationship or find yourself in an abusive relationship, how their mind works, and some of the signs that you could see that might help you prevent getting into a situation such as myself. Now, one thing that I could tell you is, when he re-entered my life after, I think end of 2013, early 2014 is when I met him, or it might have been end of 2014. Anyhow, when he came back into my life in 2020, I misspoke in last week's episode. I went back to watch, and I think I said we got married 2022. No, we got married December the 9th of 2020. We were already divorced by December of 2022. Anyhow, when he re-entered my life that year, I was already sick, and I knew I was going to need brain surgery. And he proposed less than 90 days later, after he came into my life, or came back into my life. And I hadn't seen any red flags other than that he was flaky years prior. But one of the things that I was in such a vulnerable position. I honestly was so scared of going through brain surgery. I can't even begin to tell you the fear that I had. And anybody who's ever gone through a health obstacle such as mine, where you know you might die, and the odds is 50%. What goes on in the human, I had to numb myself, my emotions. And someone asked me, how did I do that? I honestly can't tell you how I did it. And I was really, really sick leading up to the surgery. So when he proposed, I thought that I had somebody that genuinely loved me and was willing to go down this path with me, good or bad. How blessed I was. And never realizing that he would be my biggest nightmare, but at the same time, simultaneously now a blessing. Because as I've said, I love who I am and who I continue to become. And I share that with you because when we married, and he was so perfect, as I said in the last episode, and that he was willing to go down this path with me. So we married on a Wednesday, December the 9th of 2020. And a week after that, we were sitting in the room and we were talking about, I believe, food, or we were just making jokes. And this is where it all started. I remember him looking at me saying, if you don't change your eating habits to vegan, I'm going to divorce you. This was a week after we got married. Well, I thought he was joking, because who would say such a bring up divorce, number one, a week after we just said I do. And I said to him, stop messing around. And his reply was, I'm not fucking around. And that moment is when I said in the last episode, what did I get myself into? And how am I going to get myself out of this? And I could tell you that little by little, he ramped up his abuse leading up to brain surgery, which happened May 25th of 2021. But in those months, I was in and out of the hospital a lot. And I remember there was one specific time where I'd been vomiting. I'd gotten down to, I think, about 95 pounds. And my doctors were trying to get me to gain weight so that I'd be healthy enough to sustain the long surgery. It was a 7-hour brain surgery procedure. And I went to the hospital and I'd been vomiting. So they were giving me, I think it was potassium. Anyhow, I remember a nurse coming into my room and telling me they'd seen a lot of patients in that hospital because they'd been a nurse for quite some time, but that they'd never heard anybody vomiting with so much pain as the way they heard me. So how could they keep me as comfortable as possible while I was there? And I was ready to throw in the towel, if I'm going to be honest with you, because I did not feel good. And like I said, I was scared, knowing that they were going to drill into my skull and remove a piece of my brain. And even if I did survive it, I didn't know if I'd be able to function or even be able to speak. And there was a lot of things that could have gone wrong. And I'm so grateful to be able to be sharing this with you guys. Anyhow, back to the nurses. I think I'd been in the hospital about 2 days or so, and the nausea medication wasn't working, and they finally started. At some point, I stopped vomiting, and when the nurse came and said that to me, asking me how they could make me as comfortable as possible, I let them know that I'd eaten my last graham cracker, and that was the only thing it seemed like my body was not rejecting. And this was during COVID, so they said they were out of all the graham crackers. Anyhow, the nurses took the time to go to every single floor of the hospital, and they brought me a little basket of graham crackers. And that kindness that they showed me in that moment kept me going. And I'll never forget their kind words. And I share this with you because if you're going through anything difficult in your life, try to find little things like that to bring you joy. Because in that moment, it was little moments like that, because I had him to deal with at home. And then I was sick and I was in the hospital, in and out, that I had to find little things to keep me happy and keep me going. And that was a gesture that meant so much to me. And I think nurses are angels walking on this earth. And you guys don't get nearly as much credit as you deserve. But from the bottom of my heart, I want to tell you, thank you so much for what you do. Because if it was not for the grace and the kindness that you show patients such as myself, I can honestly tell you I would not be here sharing my story. So, and I share that with you because there was so much going on at home that I wasn't telling anybody. I was keeping silent about it, about the mental and emotional abuse, because I had to numb my emotions just to get to brain surgery. And this isn't something that I've ever shared with anybody publicly. 2 weeks before the surgery, I would wake up at like 5 a.m. and I was so scared and all these thoughts would go through my head. But 48 hours before the surgery, I almost called my surgeon to tell him I was going to back out and I was just going to roll the dice. And his birthday is May 20th. And I'd arranged a really nice trip to California where we were going to take in the sights of one of my favorite cities because I wanted us to have some great memories if that was the only birthday he and I were going to spend together. And I want to tell you guys how good of a liar he was too. We were actually supposed to get married May 20th of 2021 on his birthday. So when he proposed, he said that I was the greatest gift he'd ever received. So he wanted to get married on his birthday. The reason why we pushed it up to my birthday is because of brain surgery. So that's how it ended up becoming December the 9th of 2020. And had I waited until May of 2021, I'm certain I probably wouldn't have married him, but at the same time, I wouldn't change anything because, like I said, I've learned and I've grown so much from that. So that's basically what it was like leading up to the surgery. And again, during that time, I was still dealing with emotional, mental, and verbal abuse from him. And there's other parts that I said, like I mentioned, that I'm not going to get into only because I saved those part. I only speak on those subjects about when I do a speaking engagement. And I'm somebody I'm not somebody who posts a lot on social media. I post here and there about things that I do in my life or that I'm doing. I don't do it as much anymore because one of the things that he has used is social media to try to find me. Now, I shared with you in last week's episode how he messaged somebody right after we divorced, telling them that I was going to be speaking about him. Well, I don't want to say too much about that message because I don't want him to pinpoint it to this individual, but supposedly he was in therapy. But yeah, he was asking somebody to go on my page and see if what I was saying or what I was up to or where I was at, so he could find me. And there was one time where he showed up at an event a place that I frequent, and my therapist after that told me to change my entire schedule because he knew where he could find me. But with social media, if you go on my Facebook page, there you will actually see my story that I wrote. When I tell you I'm a private person, other than my family and very close friends, nobody knew that I was going to need brain surgery someday, or that I even had brain surgery until the day of brain surgery. Sometime after, I could look at the timestamp, but sometime May 25th of 2021, I took to Facebook and I let everybody know that I just undergone brain surgery, a 7-hour surgery. Piece of my brain removed the size of a quarter and a titanium plate with 16 screws in the back, and that I would give them an update after I got out of ICU. And that's how everybody found out. And I asked my son to take pictures because I knew if I did not capture pictures in that moment when I was vulnerable and I was highly medicated, I probably would never post those pictures. And a couple of them are pretty graphic, so I'm giving you a fair warning because I do show the back of my head. So I share that with you because I pinned it. And wrong, I want you to know that that story will stay pinned for as long as I'm alive. And the reason I'm sharing this with you guys is because that was not originally pinned, but when I gave my first keynote speech, I was asked to deliver it in 2022, and I gave it April, I believe, 22nd of 2022, or 2023, I did not know at that time the depth that he was going to find out what I was up to. But sometime that year, and I have everything documented, he'd gone on my Facebook page and he saw that I gave speaking engagements, and depending on what it is, sometimes I promote it and I'll do sit down for interviews on TV to promote it and whatnot. Anyhow, he saw that some of his friends were flying in or had flown in to hear me speak. And in that particular post, he created a fake profile, and he was just calling me names, everything you could possibly imagine, every derogatory name you could possibly imagine, calling me a liar and whatnot. And once he did that is when I pinned it. And then I started realizing how many fake accounts he had created. And he had sent me requests on Instagram. And on Instagram alone, if I showed you guys, I have over 40 blocked fake accounts of his. And that's just on Instagram alone. And I just wanted to show you guys too real quick the depth that he does go to in creating or harassing me. Now, he did this February 4th of last year, and I didn't print up all the screenshots because we'd be here all day. But Erin, do you think, which camera can I point this to? And if you could, this one? Okay. So he's blocked on everything, but he created a fake page under my name last year. If you guys, I have not hidden it. I am not a Trump supporter. And I'm not a supporter because he's a Republican. I'm not a supporter of his because of who he is as a human being. I don't think he has any human decency. And that is not somebody that I want representing our nation, representing me, because that's not who I am. But because I am not a Trump supporter, he created a fake profile page. He took my face and put it on different bodies. And if I showed you guys all the screenshots, you would see it. But anyhow, I reported this to Facebook through my real page, Nancy Frago, asking them to take it down, that it was somebody else pretending to be me. They would not take it down. And what ended up occurring was one of my girlfriends, several of my friends, I was asking them to report it, and they did, and the page would not get taken down until one of my friends went on that page and called him by name wrong and said, your Photoshop skills suck. You should stick to tattooing. He's a tattoo artist. And within minutes of her doing that, he took it down. And she's gotten some backlash from that as well. So just wanted to show you guys that, just to show you the extremes. I mean, because that takes time. I mean, he had to come up with the thought of creating the fake page, an email, creating the name, photoshopping my face onto other people's bodies. And then he was asking MAGA to attack me because I'm not a Trump supporter. So those are the extremes that he's gone through. And what's interesting is, you know, sometimes at the beginning, and I still sometimes I could tell when I share when people ask me questions about him, why we're still talking about him. And part of it is, as I mentioned, I still have to deal with him. He was just in my comments again this year. And the only reason why he doesn't understand that me sharing my story isn't talking about him. It's me sharing my story. But in his mind, if I speak about him, it means I'm still in love with him. And I also shared in last week's episode that I spoke to his ex-girlfriend. And I'm considering giving her a call and see if maybe she'll come on and be a guest, because she really helped make a lot of sense of things for me. So one of the things that he began telling me, I realize now, again, when you're in that abusive cycle, you don't see it until you could step out of it. But he would say things about her that just didn't make sense either to me, and why he would have stayed with her for 3 years if she was this terrible person. So when I spoke to her, she is the one that provided screenshots that he was on dating sites, and she let me know that that is how he cheats and finds women. And also one thing that I realized is that he's also addicted to, can I say porn? Yeah, I could say porn, right? Yeah, he's addicted to corn. Okay. Corn. Corn. Is that how I should say it? Okay, corn. He's addicted to corn. And when we were married, I remember there were screenshots that would pop up, and he would say that it was spam. I knew it wasn't. She helped me understand that it wasn't, how in his addiction to it and the mind games that he would play. and her and I had a really good conversation. And I think that as women, sometimes when another woman tries to warn us about someone that we might be in love with, we tend to take things out on the individual warning us. And for me, I wanted to listen to what she had to say versus attacking her or just shutting down. Because I think that too many times we don't heed warnings that we should. And that's how it makes it more difficult for us to get out of bad situations, or we get ourselves deeper into bad situations because we're not willing to listen to logic. And what's interesting is, just as he thinks that because I speak about him means I'm still in love with him, one of the things that he would tell me is that how he knew that she was still not over him because he was trying to get me jealous when he would bring her up, is that she still had not posted any pictures of herself dating anybody else. And when I spoke to her, I let her know that that's what he thought. And she laughed and she said he would do the same with the previous girlfriend. And she also let me know how the reason she doesn't post her and her significant other is because she knew he would attack him. And there's stories about them that I could tell you that he shared with me and she shared with me. But again, that would take hours, and that's not what this is about. But one day, if she's watching this or we ever get to reach out to each other again, I may invite her to come on and be a guest on the podcast, and we can talk about it, because we really shared a lot of good information and similarities that made sense for her and helped make sense for me after the fact. So I share that with you to let you know that that is how his mind works. And let's see, what else did I want to tell you guys? I don't want to miss anything because there's so much I want to share with you guys. So I told you about the social media. Told you guys about the fake accounts. He creates fake numbers. I shared with you guys in that episode the last time. Let's see. Man, there's so much I want to tell you guys. And you know what? I'm going to pull up my phone, because I actually started taking notes here, and I actually think that's probably better because I wrote a lot of things down. I notate whenever I'm thinking of things.
Can I jump in just for a second?
Yeah.
I have a thing I wanted to know about is, like, when you love somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to take care of them. You don't want to see them hurt or suffer. So where was your ex-husband during this time that you needed him, when you were going through all these emotions about your brain, your issue with your brain, your surgery? I'm just kind of confused.
Wrong, you mean? Where was he?
Yeah.
He was constantly fighting with me. And you know what, Erin, I'm actually glad you brought this up, because I have it written down on here. I didn't write it down, but I have notes. So what's interesting is, about 2 months before brain surgery, I was in the shower and I found a lump on a breast. And I just remember thinking to myself, now cancer runs in my family. And I remember crying in the shower. That's where I would cry so he wouldn't see me cry. And crying in the shower, thinking to myself, I'm married and I can't even tell my husband what I'm going through and that I just found a lump in my breast. And I was just thinking to myself, God forbid that they find cancer, knowing that I was about to have brain surgery. And I remember when I told him, he was so nonchalant. And honestly, it was only at the very beginning that he would attend doctor's appointments with me. I remember when I went to get my staples taken out, I drove myself to get my staples taken out. And actually, I remember texting him, asking him, telling him the questions that I was going to ask my neurosurgeon, and if I was missing anything, for him to let me know, and he ignored me. And I touched on that he would give me the silent treatment. So when I tell you where was he he was nowhere to be found, because every 2 weeks I would get the silent treatment. And I realized real quick that I had to fend for myself. And I did have a family member staying with us for a short amount of time. And this was all during COVID. So it was easy, I guess, to say, for me to keep it hidden, what I was going through, and not share it with anybody. And at the time, honestly, the only thing I could think of was staying focused on staying alive. Because I remember the day I came home from brain surgery. It was a Sunday, and one of my friends picked me up, and my nightstand looked like a pharmacy because I had so much medication. They were keeping me alive on stroke medication, blood pressure. I mean, there was just a lot of medication, and I was craving. My mom had made me soup, and she had left it she had made enough food for, I think, like a week. And I remember the day I came home, I asked him, "Babe, can you please warm me up the soup my mom made?" And he let me know he ate it while he was in the hospital. And he wanted me to become vegan, even though he's not vegan. And he said to me, "I'm going to make you some vegan spaghetti." Well, he brought me vegan spaghetti. It didn't taste very good. So I let him know, "Babe, I appreciate you making me vegan spaghetti, but it doesn't taste very good. So do you mind, my body's craving vegetables, getting me soup or making me soup?" Well, he called me a bitch and yanked the plate out of my hand. And he was actually calling my family at that time, complaining that I wouldn't listen to him by taking it easy. But he was leaving out that he'd been fighting with me the minute everybody stepped out, and it was just him and I in the room. So when you ask where was he was there. But if I try not to communicate with him that much, because I knew it was an argument and I didn't have the energy to do that. So does that answer your question?
It does. It just makes me sad.
Yeah, and you know, and part of the reason why I cry is because when I think about what I was going through in that moment, it makes me sad that I went through that. Because I don't think any human being that just had brain surgery, just had a piece of their brain removed, and just got married 5 months before that, should go through any of that. That's the depths of his cruelty. And he would gaslight me so much, and he would make me question my reality because of brain surgery. And you know, one of the things that he asked my neurosurgeon, have you seen on Netflix Dahmer?
No.
Okay. There is a scene on the Jeffrey Dahmer movie where he falls in love with a deaf person that he started to sleep with, and he kept skulls, human skulls. And my now abusive ex, he liked skulls. And one of the things that he asked my surgeon was, if I did not make it, if he could keep my skull. Yeah, and my neurosurgeon looked at me. We both kind of like paused real quick, and he just responded by saying, "No, we don't do that here." And then he asked if he could keep my hair. And my neurosurgeon let him know it wouldn't be a big strip because they shave from the top. There's a line basically going to the back. And he let him know that it wouldn't be a lot of hair that they would be shaving. And he says it's okay, but he wanted to keep it because he wanted to have a necklace made. And the good thing is that hair was blonde then, because in the photos that I showed you that he photoshopped last year, what's interesting is, number one, is he's blocked and didn't realize that I'd gone back to brunette in, I think, end of 2023. I went back to brunette. And I went back to brunette versus blonde because it was getting so painful getting my hair done from having the aluminum and whatnot, and then just messing with my hair in the back. It tugs on the plate, and I've had to cut it too because my hair was heavier. And my neurosurgeon did warn me that when the hair grew back, I'd have to decide how much discomfort and pain I'd want to live with, because my hair would tug on the titanium plate. So I've used to be down to my waist, and now, as you see, it's not. And actually, Aaron, I have another story for you about him. So you know how I've had foot surgery.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've known I was going to need foot surgery someday. He knew this as well. And my foot used to get swollen. So I had a right big toe joint replacement. And that foot has been bothering me since 2013. I was getting cortisone shots into it. That's how they were controlling the pain and the swelling. And last year I finally threw in the towel because it became so painful. Anyhow, I share this story with you because it was sometime in 2021, sometime after brain surgery, my foot had swelled up and we were going out to dinner. We'd been fighting. So he wanted to make it up to me, and we were going out to dinner. And I looked really cute, and I always wear, 5-6 inch stilettos. I was dressed up, and I asked him, can you please park near the restaurant so I don't have to walk as far? And he asked why, and I said, well, I'm wearing these heels, and walking far, my foot's going to hurt more. I let him know that my foot was bothering me. So what he did is he parked the furthest he could in town center. You know where the theater is? That parking lot side?
Yes.
Okay, well, he parked all the way in the back. And I asked him why he was parking in the back. And he said, well, because your foot hurts. So you can walk that entire way. And I just remember staying quiet that I couldn't believe he just said that. And I said, well, could you please go park in the front? I'm sure. He's like, it's busy. You see how full this parking lot is. I said, let's valet. And he said, I'm not going to do that. And I let him know that I wasn't getting out because the pain was too intense and I wasn't about to walk. So he got out, came to the passenger side, opened the door. He said to get the fuck out. I said, I'm not getting out. I said, you can go have dinner by yourself. He slammed the door and he pulled up next to the restaurant, and there was a parking spot right there. And we ordered dinner, but I remember fighting back tears the entire time. And once we left and got back in the car, he started accusing me of flirting with the waiter. And I just remember the entire time that we were in the restaurant, I was trying to fight back the tears of what had just occurred and his cruel words. And when we got home, it was a fight, and I let him know that I felt my intuition was telling me that that what I was going through wasn't my imagination. And he was gaslighting me in that moment, and I fell for it to a degree. Shortly after that, one of the things also that had occurred, he's a tattoo artist. He's a very talented tattoo artist. And I would always encourage him to enter contests and whatnot. And you know how we spoke about the awards last week? Because I could tell that was one thing he always wanted to, he felt that he was the best at what he did. So I would tell him, I agree that he's a badass as an artist. And I said, I actually think that you can win awards. And in order to find out how good you are, you should enter contests. And he never would. So one of the things that one of my daughters was keeping in contact with him because she wanted a tattoo. And she had asked him if he would tattoo her. And he had said yes, but I did not realize that they were communicating. Anyhow, somewhere along the line, well, looking back, I know that it had to have been him because the only thing he was consistent with was his inconsistency. So she flew into Vegas, had another tattoo artist do the tattoo. I let him know that because he'd asked me, is your daughter coming in this weekend so I can tattoo her? And I said, yeah, she is, but she got tattooed by somebody else. She's already here. That really angered him. Anyhow, he took screenshots of her tattoo, started dissecting it, and I'll never forget that he said He said she can go fuck off because she did not get tattooed by him, and that he hoped she would get an infection from the tattoo because she got tattooed by somebody else. Then there was another friend who was supposed to be tattooed by him as well, and something didn't sit right with her intuition. So she said she did not want his artwork on him. So she decided not to get tattooed by him either, and that ended up being a fight because it was my fault that she decided not to get tattooed by him. So that's usually how it would occur when things did not go his way. Do those things make sense?
I feel you. That's all I have to say. I've never been in that kind of a relationship, nor can I understand it. I always have the question as why can't you just leave? You know, why can't you just get up and walk away? And I always think that. So I don't know.
Well,
go ahead.
You know, right after surgery, I've shared with you that I had a lisp and a stutter, and the lisp still happens every now and then when I'm really tired, usually. But he would make fun of me, of the stutter after brain surgery. And I remember how he would belittle me when nobody was around. And I remember there was also another time we were headed to a charity function. And before we walked in, so I was there representing the board because I was a director on the board. And he said to me, "Don't tell them that I'm a tattoo artist." And I said, "Why?" And at the time I couldn't see it, but he was ashamed because I think he felt less than of the people he was going to be around. So he wanted just me to say he was an artist. Also, like, I had my staples taken out, I believe it was 3 weeks after brain surgery. It was within 24 hours of that, we'd been fighting and I landed in the hospital. And I remember as I was going to the hospital, he was telling me that I better not tell my neurosurgeon that we'd been fighting because my blood pressure shot up to over 200. And when I got to the hospital, I remember my surgeon telling me, you know, we did the MRI and it's not your surgery that's causing your blood pressure. And my neurosurgeon didn't like him. And when he said, "I just saw you 24 hours ago and your blood pressure, everything was just fine. So I just want you," and he looked at him and said, "Anything that's causing her stress can kill her because she's in a very vulnerable position right now. She just had brain surgery." And it was for 3 months that I had to be on a lot of medications. And just when I think back of all these things that I went through and how quiet I stayed for so many months, and just how now that's why I feel like I can't stay quiet, because one, it is very therapeutic for me to open up and share with you guys these things, and also to give you the examples, because again, if you find yourself in these situations, because I can't even begin to tell you how many times he locked me out of the house and my medications were indoors and the police did not arrest him. I had to call the police for him to let me in to take my medications. But again, I felt so much shame because we married so quickly and it went downhill so quickly. And I needed to figure out how I was going to get myself out of it. And yeah, I guess that's why I'm telling you guys these things. And, you know, another thing that he used to say to me, I remember one time he asked me, because like I said, I would encourage him to enter contests, or because he asked me if I had the choice of having the gift of gab, of speaking, or his gift of drawing, a tattoo artist, which would I keep? And I let him know that I would keep my gift. because I was very thankful for to have the ability to speak. When I asked him the same question, his answer was, I would want your gift. I would want to be able to speak. And looking back and reading the book that I showed last week, it's because if he could speak right, and the grammar errors that I was with what I was reading to you off air of his messages, I understand that's why, because it would make it easier for him to be able to manipulate people if he had the gift of speaking. So, and you saw, I read to you some of the messages, which I'm not reading on here. What are your thoughts on that, Aaron, of what I read to you?
Harsh. I feel like this person is not over you, and I don't know why. If you guys are divorced and he's moved on and he's married, you would think that he would just enjoy his life. It seems to me that he wants to inflict pain on other people. And usually when people do that, it's because they feel shame. So they've never accomplished something that they've always wanted to accomplish, or they didn't get the girlfriend or the wife that they always wanted. I mean, something in their life is making them the way they are. So I have a feeling he's not like this, not just like this with you, but he's like this as a normal human being.
Absolutely. He is the only person that I've ever encountered. And I've said this, and the only reason I make this as a comparison is because Trump, the only person that literally wakes up that I've ever encountered personally that thinks, how can I ruin somebody's day, is my ex-husband. And the only person I've ever seen, heard, have that same type of behavior is the president, that literally wakes up and thinks, how can I make people miserable? In his case, yeah, he makes a lot of people miserable, and he's lost a lot of friends. And it's just interesting when I get the messages of people saying, warning me about him and telling me, I think at the beginning, some of his friends that are no longer friends with him, because when I did tell them what he was like behind closed doors, they didn't believe me. They thought, no, he's not like that. It can't be that bad, until he called them and they found out, because he found out that they came to hear me speak. That really angered him. And some have not shared with me what he has actually said to him. All I know is that there was several people that called to warn me, to say, Nancy, be careful, because he's still talking about you. And we didn't think he still would be after this many years. So when people wonder why I'm still talking about him, that's why I'm still talking about him. I don't want to talk about him. And the only things that I really talk about is what I went through while I was married with him. And that's because that is part of my story. And as I tell people, if you don't want people to talk about you, don't be an ass. Don't be an ass. It doesn't take a lot to be kind. I have a saying that I say, smile, it's contagious. How many times can you think of that you could be at a grocery store or anywhere, just at a restaurant, picking up your coffee, whatever it might be, and you smile at somebody and they smile back. That might be the only smile they see for the day. You might be the only kind person they come across for the day. Because I could tell you during COVID, because we were so limited in how we could interact with one another, I had very few interactions with people, but the people that I did have interactions with me, they smiled at me. They were kind to me. He wasn't, but others were, and others are. And that are the gems in life. And even me doing this podcast, I know I haven't gotten it perfect. And anybody that shows me grace, I so much appreciate you, because I think people forget that I'm a brain surgery patient, and this isn't easy for me to do. And you don't get to see what I have to do to be able to do this or to function every day, because I don't speak up about it. But I don't just wake up in the mornings and my day is perfect. There's a process into being a brain surgery patient. And though the outside might look the same, my disability is on the inside and you can't see what's going on as I'm going through things. And I'm not somebody who likes to complain or share a lot about what maybe I'm feeling. But something that I do live with is chronic pain. And in order for me to stay in a positive mindset, I think about the good that I do have in my life and the things that I can do. And part of the reason of me opening up about this is so that you could see that I'm not perfect and that you'll show me some grace in the process and that I can teach you and that you can teach me things, because I keep pivoting with this podcast because some days I'm too tired to do it. And when I say that it's gotten harder to do it than I thought, is because this isn't the only thing that I do. I'm involved in other things. So it's difficult for me to just come in and try to sync everybody's schedule in mine. And because every day for me is also different. I don't necessarily, when I do have my good days where I'm not feeling any pain, I cannot begin to tell you how happy I am and the joy that I feel. But I still feel, when I do feel pain, I'm still grateful because it means I can feel. So that is how my mind works. But I wanted to share these things with you guys so that you can have a better understanding of, because when I said last week that I pity him, and I pity him because I don't even know that he's aware. I know he knows, but some people might not even know or wonder what is going on with them and why kindness now more than ever is needed. Because I think just even as a society, we can't even have a human-to-human interaction of having a conversation without being at each other's throats. Social media alone, I don't really see a lot of people engaging in having one-on-one conversations with one another and having, like I said, that human-to-human interaction. And I hope that is something that I start, and I keep saying it, and I hope that next time I go live, some of you will call in and have a conversation with me. And anybody who's commented and has engaged with me more since last week's episode, just thank you so much for taking the time to do that. And I hope that we continue to open these conversations and be raw and honest and show one another, like I said, kindness, and have the human-to-human interactions. So with that said, thank you so much for taking the time and tuning in with me today. I hope everyone is doing a wonderful. I'm not sure that I will be doing an episode next week. I'm having some things changing in my schedule in my life. But I will keep you guys posted. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.